Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Wow.
22-year-old Amanda Gorman, born with special needs, and now a freshman at Harvard University, author, and the first ever U.S. National Youth Poet Laureate on making America better and not bitter again, stirring the whole world just before the benediction at the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States, Joseph Biden Jr.
No better complimentary speech, especially the line that we'll take away. We must end this uncivil war.
A fleeting illusion, as Bob Marley sang in the epic hit song War, to be pursued but never attained.
If then, not the case in the song that he sings, there will be war in the east, war in the west.
War up north, war down south.
Rumors of war. We will have war, rumors of war.
Biden's conviction, and he says his whole soul is in this, is for America to unite.
Chat him a chat.
Or is this the real chat?
It's whatever we'll eagerly start discussing on this afternoon's edition of Real Chat.
Hi, I'm Curtis Myrie.
And I am Stratton Palmer.
Welcome to Real Chat.
Make we chat.
Let's engage the diaspora. They see things clearly. Prominent attorney at law Wayne Golding, based in Orlando, the minister's appointee to the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. Welcome, Wayne, again to Real Chat.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure being with you this afternoon.
It's our pleasure, Wayne.
Our pleasure. What are we looking for here and now? What are we hoping for? And is it just wishful thinking? Will the United States end this uncivil war? Really? Is that Real Chat?
Well, that's a bit of a loaded question. I guess if you're a pessimist, you will find the holes in that ambitious goal that this country has, and I think every country in the world has that kind of ambition when it comes from people who have a vision of equality, because equality comes in so many different forms and fashions. If you're an optimist, you will see the place as a rosy place with lots of potential. And I believe I'm an optimist but a realist at the same time, because I can't just live in what's happening around me today. I have to look at history and what has happened in the past and how that bodes for the future, because they say a people that don't know their past is bound to make the same mistakes moving forward.
Certainly.
And this dream that is the American dream, really supposed to be the American dream, it lives in the hearts of individuals who eventually will be in control, and whatever they do will really reflect on the country as a whole. But I think my exposure living here for 40 years is you still have to bring it down to the individual. because I have met so many good people living in this country, but I've also met many bad people who really don't want to see a change, and they work every day to make sure it doesn't happen. So, as I said, it's a loaded question, and we're all optimistic and hopeful that it will bring some change with this new administration, but we're also realistic because we have been here before. We've been here with the Civil Rights Bill, we've been here with the marches, we've been here with the court cases that have changed stuff. But the bottom line is that the government can't change people's hearts, and that's really what it comes down to.
We are not innocent of the realities, as you're saying, Wayne. But there seems to be a wind of change, even in the word. And we know the power of the word, as expressed by Amanda. And then since then, you have been looking at the television, and the goodwill and what is coming out suggests, like the BLM movement, which took up steam by having a wide cross-section of the population involved, seeing for the first time the reality of the treatment towards certain segments of the society. Don't you think that word, there's a wind of change, there's a feel-good situation that will influence a lot of people?
Absolutely. I think there are some people who are going to be converted and who are going to look at things a little differently in moving forward. But unfortunately, as you guys should know, it doesn't take the majority to affect things negatively.
Right.
Because you have those people who are still of the mindset that other people are unequal to them, whether it's because of financial means or racial means or gender inequity. And that's the problem, because these people permeate the entire society.
Or even when country of origin.
Yes, exactly. So we have to go into this with
whichever hole you may be coming from.
Yes, our eyes have to remain wide open. And as I said, people like us, it's like you're preaching to the choir, because that's what especially minorities in this country have been preaching for years, have been experiencing. For example, we had the riots 2 weeks ago, and everybody wants to get back to a place of what they consider normalcy. But if you look at the history of black people, especially in the United States, we have been living with domestic terrorism
a long time.
Black people came to this country, 400 plus years.
Right.
So it's nothing new. It's a modern thing to some people. But I think it unfolded in such a way that it cannot be denied anymore. And this is where I think some of the change will begin to happen, because people were able to see it live and in living color.
Sometimes the law helps change, and you, especially as an immigration lawyer, would have been through it many people. You must be heartened with the first set of signatures from the president. Immigration, we getting the children back with their parents, we the path to citizenship. You are feeling much better today, are you not?
I'm feeling much better as an immigration practitioner, because we have seen the damage that the last 4 years, 5 years have done to immigrant families. I mean, some of it is unrepairable or irreparable damage.
Wow.
I don't know how they're going to fix some of it, but for just the strike of a pen to reverse some of these draconian measures that came into place under this prior administration, it's a feel-good moment. You can actually see the results. They're going to have a 100-day moratorium on deportation.
Right.
But I must caution again that the ambitiousness of this administration is going to be tempered by the things that they cannot do with a strike of a pen when they have to go to the Congress.
Senate.
They have been battling about this immigration issue for the last 30, 40 years. Immigration laws in this country was meant to be about reunification of families. And we saw it got to the point where a current administration was in place that was actually trying to stop legal immigration, much less illegal.
Yeah.
So we are very happy that this administration has taken us back to a reset point. but it still will be an uphill battle for undocumented folks, especially the children whose ambitions have been stymied because of no fault of their own.
Let me also say this when we talk about the reset, because now it's a grand political football. And
Yes.
some are already warning, because that has gained groundswell too, that it is not necessarily in the best interest, and I'm just quoting, of Americans to have the sort of immigration that is so expansive. And you have a serious political lobby to this end too. Haven't you found that to be so?
I've been living that since I've been here in this country. I've heard that argument from several quarters, including those who are immigrants, including those who are first generation.
Especially,
parents.
that is I was waiting for you to say it.
So sometimes the enemy is within.
Right.
The enemy is right there. And sometimes even some of our own Jamaicans, I'll tell you this, I've heard them talk. And a lot of them came here without documentation themselves. In the early days, they were able to get themselves properly situated. And now they're talking as if they are going to slam the door shut on everybody else that's coming behind them. And so, it's whose pig is being poked, as they say. But we are working hard every day in the trenches, with or without legislation from the government, because the court is a very important thing in immigration law. A lot of people don't realize that, that many of the changes that have happened under the quiet in immigration law is because people have challenged the status quo, including Jamaicans. Many of the changes that we've had over the years have happened because Jamaicans have challenged the immigration laws and have gotten changed, substantial changes in procedure, substantial changes by case law. So, the contribution is not sometimes for public consumption, and we rely on politicians a lot and what they say. But the real work will still be in the trenches.
Has there been any pushback, even feedback, as to the South Asianization of Camden at the expense of the Jamaican heritage? How are Jamaicans dealing with that still, as we hear it? Is it being delivered a push, the South Asian connection?
There's really no issue, or should be no issue there. Let me use a term that we use in Jamaica, and people more understand. People who like pata type of argument, they'll buy into that.
Yes.
But this
Big
lady,
chat, big chat.
Yeah.
this lady has worked so hard. She has recognized her Jamaican side. She has recognized her Indian side. She has recognized her African American side. There's no one who should be putting it on a scale and say, well, she's recognizing the Indian more than the Jamaican and the American more than, listen. The important is the track record. The important thing is the track record and what she can and cannot do. And also the sensitivity that she has, especially towards immigration issues, is born out of her parents being immigrants and her understanding of what immigrants contribute to the United States of America. So those people who want to get caught up in the weeds and they don't feel that she speaks enough of her Jamaican heritage, I would disagree with them. I've met her personally. I've heard her tell her stories of the food, the culture, where her father's from, her grandparents in Senton, her days that she spent as a kid. So, listen, there are those people who spend their idle time dealing with that. But we're dealing with real issues here, and we're very happy that we have somebody, or more than one person, I should say, of Jamaican heritage in this administration who will bring their cultural exposure and their differences that they know that are positive to bring to bear in decision making and policy making in the United States, including the third in charge of the U.S. Justice Department. Ms.
Amanda,
Clark. So,
Susan?
Amanda Gorman says the U.S. is not broken, it's just unfinished. How would you respond to that?
it's in a quagmire, I would say. A lot of people have bought into what we call the American dream, which is living in a place where equal opportunity is there, or the promise of equal opportunity. Again, I say your perspective comes from where you sit. Because there are a lot of people who will say it is not broken, it's not a perfect union, they're working on it. But the key is time. We've been hearing this from day one, and a lot of people don't have the patience for that anymore. They want to deal with the reality on the ground. But the fact is that if you're here, you must strive to be a positive contribution to this country, regardless of what's happening around you, because you're standing on the shoulders and on the graves of others who share that belief, who went to war for this country, who fought for this country and could not come back and use the same bathroom, eat in the same restaurant. So we are beneficiaries of those people's beliefs and struggles. So I will not insult anyone to say the place is broken and cannot be fixed.
Right.
It's not perfect,
I rather
but
like
it's a work in progress.
how you coined it, Wayne, because we are used to saying that we stood on the shoulders of so and so, but we must remember also on the graves. Yes.
Yes.
You spoke of
Absolutely.
you spoke of reality, and somehow it just occurred to me today that there was a place in all of this movement for Trump, in the sense that a lot of things which would have gone on as being cloaked and hidden is now out for full exposure. We saw what happened January 6th, and there's no hiding that from that now.
Yes, the sheets have been pulled off again. It's not the first time that the sheets have been pulled off. It's just a different dynamics now, especially with communication being what it is on social media and all of these things and instantaneous. But when you had stuff like the Tulsa massacre, you had stuff like them letting dogs loose on protesters in the streets in the South, where they're killing Jewish and black people, where you had in the town of Ocoee, Florida, where I am very close to, where there was a riot and they took all the black people out of that town, took all their land, and the richest black man, they took him downtown Orlando and hung him.
Yes.
They just erected a statue to him about a couple of years ago. And so these things are there, and for people who are not interested in history, that's the ones who all of a sudden they're amazed that this could happen on the soil of America. Because America has always been seen quite unfairly as the pristine country to be, and everything is good and perfect. But history is something that we should really study. And just like other countries in the world who have gone through different changes and different social consciousness, America is no different. The only thing is that the image, the pristine image that was always out there, is now subject to scrutinization and even ridicule now. But it's one thing I have to tell you about the folks here in this country is that no matter what happens inside their borders, they still maintain that they're the best country in the world.
Oh, there is one final question, because we have to be wrapping up now. Immigration and police reform are often hot peppers in the same pot of soup. You're an immigration lawyer. You must have concerns about the police engaging the broader citizenry. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts looking ahead, and what do you hope for?
Well, I think like any other agency or any other set of people. They're reflective of the community at large. Uh, a law put into place to say a police officer should not do this or do that, it's not going to change that police officer's attitude once they're in the street. That's the first thing you have to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of it is, if you look at what happened with the riots 2 weeks ago, you'll see a broad cross section of society participated, whether they were politicians, whether they were housewives, whether they were lawyers, whether they were doctors, pastors, whatever, participated in that riot. So we have to be cognizant that although this administration is coming into place, they're going to make certain changes and even have punitive things in place. We still have to guard ourselves as individuals and don't think that good behavior and morality can be legislated. So we're still concerned. We still have that level of concern about interaction with the police. We'll still talk to our children. We'll still talk to our relatives on how to interact and what not to do and how to protect yourself to stay alive, because it's a reality. If one person gets killed because of one police or bad police officer, that's one too many. So moving forward, I think everybody should still have that level of consciousness, and dealing with immigration issues especially for immigrants. They have to realize that they're living in a rented house, so to speak. And until you acquire your U.S. citizenship, you are not as equal, as George Orwell told us back in Animal Farm. Some animals are more equal
than so.
When you have been
and it will remain that way. So we just have to be vigilant and know
Yes.
what our surrounding is.
You have been excellent as usual. Thanks for sharing your time with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Wayne.
Thank you, guys. And one last shot before I go.
Yes.
If you notice the fashion statement that the Vice President made, I guess she listened to the advice from a certain school on North Street. So I think it was well received.
Okay.
At the start of this, you mentioned about loaded question, and I said to myself, since I'm on the other side of North Street, I'm going to behave. So I'm behaving, sir. All right, my brother.
Take care, guys.
Good. Remember now to post your queries while watching. Text your concerns as well to 876-787-5873. Subscribe and support the program by contributing to the Cash App Real Chat. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stratton, interesting discussion.
Between Golden, yeah.
Yes, and on this peculiar, if even troubling perhaps, subject of ending this uncivil war in the United States, right? And you can't be thinking about this subject, addressing this subject, and not cast an eye on the whole evangelical movement, right? Through what was tumultuous and now the road to be taken, right? If it is, you're thinking about making America better and not bitter again, right?
That's right, and certainly evangelicals, we know they're thinking, they're leaning But there's another side. There is the president who is a devout Roman Catholic.
Right.
And we have the Anglican Church also represented in several cities, etc. Lots of people from England, from the Caribbean, who are used to that kind of denomination. So they have a role to play, a significant role, and they are equally in the fight.
Right. We'll go over now to the church pew, as it were, right up into the, where are we now? At the Episcopal Anglican Church of the Holy Family, Miami Gardens.
Miami Gardens, yes.
Let's have a word with the rector, the Reverend Horace D. Ward. Reverend Ward, how are you?
My brothers.
Yes, sir.
Massive Wagwan.
Reminiscent of another.
We're there.
We're chat.
Yes,
Good.
yes. Listen,
Good.
real chat. The evangelical, what exactly they're experiencing now. What are they saying? How are they getting behind, perhaps, the Biden, who may not have been their candidate of choice? What's happening in that whole scenario?
Give me a moment to set that question, please,
Yes.
in a context,
Yes.
and in which, of course, out of, and I hope that we can get to it in terms of moving from the evangelical church to I would say, the ecumenical church,
Right.
going forward here in the United States, because I think that it certainly rests with the broad faith community
Right.
as to what happens, and significantly so in the next 4 years. I have been intrigued with the term the Uncivil War that you might have already discussed. That has been is nothing new here in the United States, and that it has its roots back in the American War of Independence. It has its roots in the Civil War here in the United States. It has its roots certainly in the democracy, or the experiment that we call democracy here in the United States, in which under the Constitution you have different provisions to allow different perspectives to have debate, agreement, disagreement, and yet history tells us that when there is civility, in the context of the church and the history of the Christian church, there is a phrase called to respect the dignity of every human being, and that where there is respect, we can see progress. Where there is a lack of and an entrenched perspective, opinion, then that is where the chaos or the uncivil war comes into place. So I just want to place the context, and I do believe in the civility of, in which, from again the Christian perspective, to respect the dignity of every human being, to love my neighbor as to love myself. That's fundamental, at least as I understand the scripture, as I understand perspective of the Christian church. Now, in terms of the evangelical movement and where they stand today,
let me butt in here again. Are we looking at a community?
Yeah, sure.
Are we looking at a community in despair?
I think there are parts of the community that are in shock, that are in pain, that is disoriented, and having to find their footing. You know, only today I was watching Fox News, and they had a discussion around this topic in terms of where does the evangelical community stand? The thing that struck me is that there is no monolithic in the evangelical community.
Right.
Maybe we could talk about, the hardcore fundamentalists, who are just so, as far as the scripture is concerned, so it is written, so it must be done. I think that is where the pain and the disillusion and the need for reckoning stand. I listened recently to Dr. Billy Graham's son, Franklin, was it yesterday, who lashed out at those who are on the side of, essentially, who are on the side of now President Biden, and he had an unsavory, comment, essentially, demonizing them, as I understand the statement, demonizing them as being, godless. Now that statement I hear out of the pain and the need for reckoning.
A lot of questions could come off that.
Come.
Yes, because you mentioned earlier that they are not monolithic, eh? Your church, the Anglican
No,
church.
they're not.
Yeah, the Anglican church, and we spoke to Bishop Gregory some time ago,
Yes.
and he says that the Anglican church is by consensus. Does that mean that you have to go with the tide, or are there individuals who would have and propagate their own beliefs and thoughts?
And that word consensus is crucial.
Yes.
In my year, I started out. I was ordained in Jamaica and then moved here to the United States.
Yes.
And certainly was involved in the church. I served at St. Andrew's Parish Church
Okay.
for a while before moving here, and I was appreciative, and even now more appreciative, at the Anglican Church as I cut my eye teeth there in Jamaica on it, that we engage in conversation, we engage in debate, we engage in agreement and disagreement. But what is crucial is that when it comes down to the end, for example, when we have to vote, we may still have our different perspectives, but we are going forward with essentially that one solid common thread from a common mind to make the most significant impact for the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And that means the healing of the nation, the healing of communities, and the healing of individuals. Now, here in the United States, that is very much the case, as I have been involved in critical positions or significant positions, critical decision making here in the United States. That works. That works. In my community, which I have been blessed to serve here at Holy Family Church for the last 25 years, that is something that we continue to strive for. So it doesn't make for perfection. It doesn't mean that we're going to be in lockstep. But what is critical here, and I find needing in many other communities, and I would risk to say at great threat, and I welcome the opposition and the debate therein after, that kind of consensus is lacking in, or let me be more positive, is needed in the evangelical movement of the Christian church.
And
you see, it is possible that there can be. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is it possible?
Yes, it is possible that even in what you call the evangelical movement, where there is diversity, it is possible for common conversation and consensus. Here in the city of Mining Gardens, we have an ecumenical group of clergy, all stripes, and we have our opinions, we have our perspectives, and we do have our differences, and we bring them to the table. I'm grateful to be the chair of that group. We have the rough and the tumble, as I've already said. But after all is said and done, we respect one another where we are. But I also hear and see, more importantly, that we work together in different ways. You know, in worship services, in feeding the hungry, projects to clothe naked, and so on and so on. Now, we have conversations with our politicians. We have conversations and influence policy here and bring about changes in the city of Miami Gardens. You know, so that, for example, we have what is called Live Healthy Miami Gardens, which is a multi-million-dollar health initiative to bring together and build up health projects here in the city of Miami Gardens. And you have the ecumenical group of clergy, and mostly, I would say, here's a good SWOT sample of the evangelical movement. You know, we agree on the whole matter of reproductive rights or the whole matter of gender equality. And here's a predominantly evangelically focused group of clergy who can participate. So I have great hope for the evangelical movement here.
I want to be. I want to be, because sometimes I am. They say I'm the troublemaker. All right. So permit me.
Please, good.
Permit me to be cheeky, if not even contentious. I hear you, Father, and it is good. But some contend that that's the exception to the rule. Some contend that the pursuit of preferred policy has left many evangelical, many members of even the ecumenical church, the pursuit of the policy judges, abortion, that impassioned pursuit has made many leave the gospel by the door of the church, getting so feverish in want to achieve that end that you, just like you said, Billy Graham's son, now lashing at the folks who he believes are different and supportive of Biden. How are you going to change that around? How does the church look at itself in the mirror and say, this is part of how we contribute to ending this uncivil war? Are you still here?
Wonderful question. Yes, sir. Actually, that was not only was it a good question, but that's a question I want to run and hide underneath my bed. So please.
This is a serious thing, you know, Father. I don't know how we're going to deal with this, you know. Because some people they're transfixed. Them not moving from this position. I don't know. I don't know.
Let's hear you, Father.
Yes, let's hear you.
In my first seminary there at the United Theological College of the West Indies, there in Mona, where I cut my IP. Let me go evangelical, or use an evangelical term. It is there that I rediscovered Jesus. Okay, my faith in Jesus was born in my family, lived out at St. Luke's Church, Crossroads. certainly, and I have to take a zinger at the 209. Okay, it came alive at Wolmer's Boys School. Talk about Casey and Georgie.
I thought you went to the school of St. Augustine on North Street. Yes.
And I'd say that
word.
Yes.
But quickly, there at the United Theological College, when you had 15 denominations, what was critical is simply we were forced to listen to one another. We were forced to have the conversation. We were forced to have proof positive by way of being rooted in Scripture, and being able, as best and as humbly and as sincerely as we can, to speak that Scripture alive in real practical terms. So that these many years for me, continuing to have the bestest friends of different faith stripes. I see that principle is needed and necessary now in a fractious society and in a fractious church here in the United States, and it is possible. It is possible. During the last year, I participated in several different segments, forums, platforms, with not just within my own faith communion of the Anglican Episcopal Church, and not only here in the United States. It was significant to me to reach back to the Anglican Church in the Caribbean, the Anglican Church in Jamaica, but also the Ecumenical Church there in Jamaica. I also here in the United States, in addition to participating in my own denomination, Anglican Church's conversation, I participated in the Black Church conversation. I participated in the White Church conversation. And I have to bring color and race into this, because that's a part of, and a significant part of the Uncivil War. And if I have time and I have memory, I'll come back to the black and white issue. It's significant. So I think the possibility and the practical possibility I'm encouraging is that we, faith community, including the mainline denomination as well as the evangelical movement. And remember now, the evangelical movement is not a denomination or a single.
It's an umbrella.
It's an umbrella that the ecumenical movement and other faith communities will have some new conversations.
All right. I'm going to stop you there, because we're getting out of time. But I'd like you to take 30 seconds, if you will, to deal with the black-white church issue.
Right.
Sure. Happy to do that. Yeah. Oh, you want me to?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Allow me to be a religious politician here, to say that some of the leading evangelical voices, those who stood next to the former president, are now crying out forgiveness.
Oh, good.
Are now crying out to say, let us have another chance and another go around. I think that is a good signal.
Okay.
And that therefore that brings hope going forward. Now, as for the color race thing, that has been very much a part of what has caused the upending chaos that we find ourselves. We can talk about the history of of race. Going back from slavery, we can talk about Jim Crow, we can talk about Reconstruction, we can talk about civil rights. And by the way, being mindful that the church was very much a part of each era of each movement,
Right.
going back to the founding of this country up until today. And so that there has been a racial divide. And thankfully for persons like John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson, who during the 60s brought around, identified the civil rights movement to put things in place. And so the chaos has been race and racism, and that race and racism has changed its ugly form and even its smell. It has gone mainstream. And the bottom line that we need to address is money. Follow the money.
We are out of time, Rev, so sorry. But you have pointed us in the direction.
Right. Oh,
so we
indeed.
can, from what you're saying, there will be reason that we'll continue to speak to you in the near future. We thank you ever so much for joining
Look forward
us.
to that.
Yes.
Thanks a
Okay,
lot.
my brothers.
Good.
All good.
Right.
All right, we take a break.
We'll take a break. Oh, the discussions have been so engaging, Shatta, right?
Yes.
We could talk all afternoon.
Just had Reverend Ward from the Anglican Church down there.
Right,
in Miami Gardens.
we had Wayne Golding first, and then Reverend Ward.
No.
And now,
This is a big
listen
man.
to the man who they say, it cannot say it's me, say so. Is that them tell us? You have been close to the Biden campaign. Experienced corporate intellectual property and government transaction lawyer in South Florida, Marlon A. Hill. Welcome, sir.
Propaganda. Fake news.
Fake
news.
news. How close?
Misinformation.
Misinformation. But how close have you been?
I mean, as close as everybody. No, I mean, I've been a volunteer. I was pretty involved with the Obama campaign, and I like to play a role in helping our community to become more engaged on the ground with political campaigns. So I served as a surrogate for the campaign and helping to mobilize and educate voters, giving advice on developing policy, especially impacting people of color for the campaign. So I do my part.
Hold on, Shatta. That don't sound like fake. It sounds like we catch the rake.
No, not only that. I'm certain that he's not a man who deals with alternative facts.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Sir Marlon, you are the man.
Yeah, man.
The economic outlook for the United States. It's really a difficult time with the pandemic, the whole situation of whether the lockdown, whether livelihood over lives, etc., etc. Is this as difficult a time for Biden to take over the reins as it was for Obama when he took over in terms of economic outlook?
And now more so, given what has been happening.
So. I don't know. I think it's two different generations, two different eras, two different areas of challenges. But the economic impact that the United States is going to be feeling, like all of us, even in Jamaica and beyond in the Caribbean, everybody's feeling it, right? So you have the public health pandemic, you have the pandemic of racial and social justice, you have the economic pandemic, and it's going to take leadership, and we all have a role to play to come out of this with the least amount of impact on all of us, right? So I think that Joe Biden's life experience in dealing with challenges personally and challenges professionally. I think he's the right person for the moment. I think you saw yesterday him trying to set a different tone in regards to what his values are all about. And I think as a leader, one of the most important things that you can do for your family or your company or your organization or your church or for your country is to set a tone and to be accessible and to articulate the types of values that you want, how you want people to be treating each other. And that also includes the economy, that also includes the public health. Today was his opportunity to articulate his plan and his vision for us to recover from COVID-19. And that's just not just for America. I think that even extends to across the world. And I think, I believe, gentlemen, this was a missed opportunity of leadership for former President Trump. Right. Yeah, unfortunately.
But hear me out, Marlon. The unity being sought, given the weight of the progressive agenda that Biden is bearing on his back and shoulders.
Sure.
How does he navigate? Sure. How does he navigate?
Well, in every country and nation, you're going to have people that ascribe to your vision as a leader, and you're going to have dissenters, right? Your goal as a leader, and for President Biden and Vice President Harris, is they're going to have to articulate what their vision is and find common ground where they can, including within their own party, right? And if you can find those things that you can, the lowest hanging Julie mango, right? You can find the lowest hanging Julie mangoes, right? And share that with the people that enjoy Julie mangoes, rather than keeping all the Julie mangoes for yourself, right? Then you can move to the higher hanging fruit as he goes along. So, but the priority right now, because nothing else is going to happen if we don't effectively and efficiently recover from this COVID-19 pandemic.
What are your expectations, Marlon, about the reaction, the pushback that we'll have from the 1%, those who are Republican, who control the strings of the economy? Will there be cooperation, or you expect them to try to stymie the process?
I think that the results of the election in Georgia is going to be helpful, right? So he has to be able to manage having full power of Congress and then having the power of the office of the presidency, and to use that delicately as he builds relationship. And I think Mitch McConnell and both of them have a relationship, because remember, in order to pass any bill in the Senate, you're going to need 60 votes, right? So you have 50 plus 1, so you need 9 more Republicans to pass any major legislation in the Senate. So pay attention to who those Republicans are going to be, whether or not they're Republicans that are trying to support a bipartisan vision, or Republicans who are freewheeling, independent, who may be running for president in 2024.
Well, Marlon, what is happening in Georgia points the way forward, because in 2 years' time you'll have another set of Senate races. Yes. And people will be mindful of their own future in this. So it's not only their Republican point of view, but in terms of their own survival. Are you expecting that to influence the process?
Yeah, I think that every elected official, whether in Jamaica or the United States, is always thinking about their own preservation for their next term, right? The Congress, the term limit is 2 years. The Senate is 6 years, right? Unless they're serving out the remainder of a term. So yeah, they have to be mindful of that, but they also have to get things done. The American people want stability. They want to get back to some normalcy. They want to get their businesses back on track. They're looking for the quality of life of their families. And whoever can deliver that from either side, American people are going to be paying attention to that, including within the Democratic Party and right now the more so fractured GOP.
Do you think the party that is not addressing, because sometimes, well, we call it we can be myopic in our own views. Do you think those politicians who keep digging in, either left or right, without having a central focus sometimes on the needs, the pool of needs, do you think that now more than ever they might be punished, they will be punished?
I don't know about being punished.
By the vote,
I think
by the vote, by the vote.
Sure, possibly, but the balance of politics many times is balancing personal interest over the greater good.
Right.
Right? That is the balance of politics for every politician. And if you can advance your personal interests and values while taking care of the greater good, you have a greater chance, in my view, of surviving. But if you get too selfish, sometimes you may be self-ostracizing your own self-interest.
Someone said that democracy and politics is about a struggle between cynicism and hope. Where is America now? Cynical or hopeful?
I think America right now is having a honeymoon with hope. I think that the spirit of the inauguration festivities is giving people a chance to breathe and exhale.
Certainly.
and to have a little bit more quietness in there, not too much noise publicly. So I think that President Biden is going to bring a level of stability, and you will see that not only in the financial markets. I think you're going to see that generally in the tone of communication. The one concern that I have is I think the impeachment process, gentlemen, is going to be problematic. I'm curious to see how they manage that, because somebody has to be held accountable. We can't just ignore that what happened 2 weeks ago didn't happen.
Right, right.
So the management will be important.
Yeah, and who supports the effort from the Republican Party and the GOP is also going to be interesting. We already see a break in the ranks, and Mitch McConnell is also, now that he is the minority leader, is indicating that he wants to see some accountability as well. So that gives Joe Biden an opening to have some support to kind of get through that process quickly. And what I think we need to pay attention to is which senators go on the record to vote for it or against it.
Yes.
Because they may be looking at their prospects in the future or their impact on their prospects in the future.
We cannot be talking about ending the Uncivil War, about going forward, without also talking about the standing of the United States in the world. Again, the trust factor. Address it.
Like any relationship,
like you're ready for that one.
When you break trust in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's in the church or whether it's in the community, it takes time to rebuild that trust. I think I would be naive to say that the reputation of the United States has taken a hit, and so we have to put in some work to rebuild. But I do think the institutions of the United States still stand strong, and people still have respect for the nation. But we have to do some damage repair.
Yeah, but you say that even after what you have seen, how fragile the system is to experience what it experienced. Many people thought that it could never happen in the United States.
Well, democracy is fragile, but it's, we're still on the journey to a perfect union, and I think the U.S. suffered from this type of being on the pedestal of being perfect in every regard, and I think that was a bit of an overreach for America's standing in the world. I think that we still have a reflection in the mirror of our imperfections, So I think this type of humility is needed, including for nations like the United States.
One final question from me. You're the man dealing with government transactions. How do you see the changing field? What will more likely happen? Where will be the challenges, specifically?
Where would be the challenges for the administration?
Yes.
You know, I think the challenges are one that are not necessarily legislative, but it's really repairing the fractured relationships as a nation. You know, it's not an easy journey. You have 14 parishes. The United States has
50 states, yeah, right.
50 states and over 270 million people, which each state with a different culture. And it's a multicultural society as opposed to a country like Jamaica that's a little bit more homogeneous. It's not an easy task, but that is the beauty of the United States. It's the reason why people still look at the United States as a shining star beyond the economic powers. It's also the values, it's also the culture, it's also the all the fixings that comes with the country. There is nothing like it across the world, you know. So it's something that I take great joy in being a part of it, being a black man of Jamaican descent that has come here as a teenager and being able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish. I think that the United States can take pride in my own success.
Marlon, it is really good to have been introduced to you, and we'll be in touch with you further.
Yes, because you see, like how you're so close, we need to call on you. We need to call on you every now and again.
I'm on call to join the conversations. I know that Jamaicans love a good political talk on the veranda anytime, and keep continuing to criticize and to also give credit where it's due.
Right.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much. Good.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Back in a moment. We're back with Real Chat. Road safety is everyone's concern. In 2020, there were 424 deaths on the road, 16 less than in 2019, but that provides little comfort. Of the lives that were lost, 138 were motorcyclists, 18 pillion passengers, 85 pedestrians, and 32 pedal cyclists. Meet Canute Hare, head of the Road Safety Unit in the Ministry of Transport and Mining. He is to be engaged as he insists that the threat of penalty is certainly not enough. It is of note that the unit and other stakeholders have been working with motorcyclists in Westmoreland to transform mindset, as there is a deliberate strategy to engage, educate, and encourage those most at risk to die from crashes. Mr. Hare, welcome.
Thank you very much for having us, and thank you very much for your listeners who are listening to your program also.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Tell me about this project of yours at Westmoreland, because when Stratton and I saw the report, we were fascinated. We have to call you and bother you and talk to you. What is going on with you and the motorcyclists in Westmoreland to try and change mindset? Talk to me.
We have to protect our men and to preserve them also, because our men are very valuable to our society and for the future development of our country. Our females have done a very good job in terms of protecting themselves on the road, which we profoundly appreciate. So we would want our men to also develop that level of protection and caution as they traverse the road network, so that we can have less destruction and disruption in the family system of our country. Close to 9 out of every 10 road deaths involve a man. And what that does is that somebody's father, someone grandfather, someone uncle, someone friend is lost, and then the family structure is affected. And these things really can take time. To overcome the grieving process, it takes years. As someone who lost their parent 33 years ago, I have not forgotten my mother. I haven't forgotten. I can see her photograph. I can picture her right now. I can see her speaking to me right now.
And this was in an accident?
So, no, it wasn't an accident.
Okay.
Right? So, it's very important for us to try to reach out to this cohort of road user that basically have accounted for close to 1/3 of the persons who have been killed on the road network.
So what has been taking
Westmoreland,
place? Yes, what has been taking place?
And Westmoreland is the epicenter for motorcycle crashes.
Okay.
It's the area where we are likely to have head-on collisions with motorbikes. It's the area where a lot of motorcycles are located because it's a culture. Westmoreland was formerly a bicycle culture. Now they have transformed the bicycle culture over into motorcycles. So Westmoreland have a love for two-wheelers. And we have no problem with two-wheelers. We just want them to be operating safely and properly.
But it is a part of the transportation experience in Westmoreland.
It's part of the transportation experience down there, but what I would like to say, it's not the transportation experience persons who are crashing and killing themselves. So those guys who operate the bike, huh?
Even though, yeah, sometimes I hear 4 and 5 on a bike.
Yeah, man, 5 on a bike down there, man. And you go down there yesterday, they say they are skilled.
Yes.
Right?
So
but
what do you do, Mr.
skill.
Hare? What do you do? How have you been able to reach out to them?
No, we face them down, We face them down. We go to where they are located. We go to their communities. So we knock door. We canvass them to join the road safety train. We try to get the family involved. And also, as working with stakeholders, we have training sessions with them. And the training sessions are multi-sectoral. So you have the Jamaica Constabulary Force involved, the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Transport, both the Island Traffic Authority and the Road Safety Unit, the National Road Safety Council, the Hard Trust NTA, and the Insurance Association of Jamaica. We have all come together to recognize that we have to attack this thing in a collaborative role, and that is what we have been doing from about last year, August till December in Westmoreland. We're reaching out to person. So we have done.
Yeah. How did this evolve, and what kind of really pulling that you had to do to get all those bodies to be involved in this process?
And about how many persons?
It wasn't difficult. It wasn't difficult because we are in one accord. Of course, we got assistance from the FIA Foundation, right? And they have donated some helmets to us. And we are some motorcyclists who attend our session that we put on. At the end of this, once they have completed the sessions, we give them helmets, right? And we implore them to be motorcycle ambassadors. So we carry them to a training program. The Jamaica Constabulary, I must say, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, motorcycle training team, they have to get a big up. They have been committed with us from day one. From the idea was pitched to them that we have to help our people. Because remember, it's our people, it's our people, right? So when we say our people doing things that is not good, right, we have to help them. I went to a school, you see, that said the brave may fall but never yield.
Oh, Lord.
So we are going to push ourselves out there, and we are going to be brave out there to address the issue.
Mr.
So
Hare.
even though we'll see the numbers going up, we're not going to stop, because guess what? One day it has to go down enough. So when the good books say a good man falls 7 times but he get back up, we're going to get up back. It doesn't matter, because we know that once you sow the seed of training and development for these motorcycles, and we're going to do it continuously. We're not going to stop, right? And the good thing about it, I must say though, the motorcyclists who have attended, it has been good for them. The experience has been good. They have been empowered.
About how many of them?
Mr. Hare, let
Yes.
it be said that I didn't invite you to the program. It was Mr. Myrie.
Yes,
idea,
yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Myrie is right.
They may take this Fortis thing too strong. That
Yes, Stratton is a Fortis man. So yes,
Yes, there you go.
full. Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So he's making full disclosure, right?
I am a Fortis man.
And hiding from any stones that I might throw. I did invite you, but tell me about the number of riders. How many of them?
We have done cohorts in August, September, October, November, December. So you're looking at about 200 persons we have interacted with face to face. Right? So we are providing the material, we are telling them everything that they need to know. And we know it's thousands of motorcyclists in Westmoreland. So what we have done, we have tried to get them to be ambassadors.
What about licensing and responsibilities, etc., etc.?
Yes, man,
Because
all
you
of
don't
that
want
is
them
there
to be
exposed
running
to all of
from
that.
the police,
No,
but to be facing up. as you said.
everything. The sessions are, there is nothing that is held back from them.
Do you think
Nothing.
All right.
Right?
Do you think because you are the road safety unit, so fine, you're addressing most of the people who die from crashes. Yes. But what about, and this is a vexed point, the taxi men? Do you think your whole approach could be adopted in dealing in dealing with the taxi operators as well? For them to become road ambassadors?
I think you have touched a very good point. I must say that I think we have left that up to the transport authority to deal with, but that is an area that I think that we will begin to look at
but
to see how we can.
The way you have been going about educating and including these bike people, I'm sure they are more collaborative. But the situation in Kingston with the taxis is like normal drivers have become an endangered species.
It is bad. Believe me, you need to adopt this. You need to adopt this. Use it as a model for dealing with taxi operators too. Because rather than ambassadors, they feel that they are dons of the road.
That is true.
All right, Mr. Hare, I thank you so much. I personally, and I'm sure this is shared by Stratton as well, you're doing well. You're doing a good job. Yeah, this of reaching out. Yes. Reaching out to people who use the road to see if you can change mindset.
I want to say something too. Since November the 2nd, I've been at the helm of the Island Traffic Authority.
Okay.
And I want persons to recognize now that we want to ensure that drivers are properly empowered. Not only so before they come to do our test, we are seeking to provide them with materials electronically that will empower them. We have a lot of information on the YouTube channel. The person can go to the Road Safety Unit YouTube channel, and if you want to know how to pass your driving exam, go and watch those videos. Right? They encourage you how to pass the driving exam. And you are going to find that, and I would like to anybody who after watching all those videos on the Road Safety Unit channel, who can come back and say, my driving instructor taught me everything you said, Mr. Hare. We give you a prize.
What about the reading situation? Because that is compulsory. And we see a lot of drivers on the road who can't have the skill to navigate words.
Yes, we're working on them with that because we have bucked up that situation in Westmoreland and the two hard trust MTA. There's a motorcycle training program down there, and they have incorporated the literacy component into it to empower them. Because remember, we want to empower our people, so not only to operate a motor vehicle, to learn to read and write, but to be a better person and to challenge for big jobs too. Yes, that's what we're interested in. We want to have our people think big, right? We don't want you to think, say, look, you're not learning to read and write just because you want to do that. No. You want to learn to read and write. You maybe want to fly a plane. You want to be a mechanic. You want to be an engineer. And remember, before you were created on this earth, all spiritual gifts and all gifts and blessings were placed inside of us. So we have divine destiny to fulfill, and that's why we're working with the people. We're not writing off anybody, and we are committed to working with motorcyclists in Westmoreland. We intend to be with Western Jamaica because Western Jamaica from Trelawney comes straight back to St. Elizabeth is accounting for more than 50% of motorcycle deaths.
All right, sir.
All right.
So we have to help them.
Continue to preach, sir.
Yes.
All right, Canute. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good. Ooh, interesting.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
And it could be adopted in so many other areas that they have collaborative efforts from various institutions coming to solve particular and peculiar problems.
We will really be monitoring that. This particular development, because it will save lives. We'll be back. Post your queries. Remember now, post your queries while watching. Text your concerns as well to 876-787-5873. Subscribe and support the program by contributing to the Cash App Real Chat. Don't go in.
Subscribe and share.
And share. And indeed share. Listen, we talk about road safety. When we return, we're going to talk about our safety, the horrors of the gun crime. It has to be addressed. Back in a moment. Back with Real Chat. In many quarters, there's a culture of indifference because we have become numb to the horrors of crime. You need to be alarmed, however, at these statistics. Globally, roughly 32% of homicides are committed by the gun. In Jamaica, that figure rises dramatically to 80%. Let me say it again. It rises dramatically to 80%. The police estimate that as many as 200 illegal guns land on our shores every month. Let that sink in. As you recall, the recent gun and ammunition find at the Montego Bay port. It's chilling. Good news, but you know we are just playing catching up. We'll have to chat about this. Karl Marsh, follow him on Facebook with the revealing post, Paradise Without Crime. Former Army captain who has worked in various security posts with the United Nations for some 29 years. It has been quite a march. Welcome, Karl Marsh. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to start, you see, because we don't even know where to start with this, you know. But I want to start
at the beginning.
Yes, we're going to start at the beginning.
Yes.
This gun culture, this murder by the gun, this crime, this horror, it's anthropological, no?
It is. And I think we have reached a stage certainly starting this year and more so even near the end of last year, to be shocked to the core, particularly with the wanton taking of lives of older people and children and women. We have seen a shift towards making victims of these categories of persons. It's woeful just to read the newspaper or listen to newscasts about the horrors we are inflicting on each other.
It's way back from when we landed as slaves. What is the DNA, the social DNA at the heart of this?
Well, it's my theory, and the research that I have done on crime, given the fact that I studied criminal justice and planning at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, and having worked for the UN and seeing the horrors of destruction and civil wars, for example, the issue of crime in Jamaica is uppermost in my mind. What worries me most is that we are not yet using the proper techniques for really reducing the impact of crime in a society that is also known for its corruption, quietly as well as invariably some leakages occur where it becomes headline news. But the bloodletting is much too much, and we find that the availability of weapons is very easy because most of those weapons and ammunition are coming via our two main ports, Montego Bay and Kingston, and these weapons and ammunition are coming from the United States. The awful realization is that Jamaicans residing in that country are targeting persons here by making these clandestine shipments come to us. And then the supporters here are using those as the means to enrich themselves, but they do take lives and cause serious injuries. There are people with lifelong injuries who did not die, but they have to carry that for a long, long time. We're in trouble, and we really have to fix this.
Do you suppose, Carl?
Back to the point of how did we start out? My favorite piece is that we started out as a pirate island, where lawlessness, brigandage, plunder, attacks, and so on were part of our DNA, and it started there. And that ran into slavery that took over eventually, where everybody was denied, was black, was a slave, was not human, was treated as an animal, like the cow and the horse. And it was the British, the white rulers, who were people. And that sort of tragedy lasted for hundreds of years, of course. And so from generation to generation, it's woe and sorrow and being unable at times to, deal with the difficulty of their situation. So all of that coming down to us in 1838, when we got full emancipation, the over 311,000 freed slaves walked off the plantation, and they had to start life. Their only experience, Curtis, was the horrors that they went through for generations with children. So that becomes part of the markers in their DNA, as I am learning, and researchers call that now cultural transference. So we react to certain things in a typical way, preserve life or safety, or that could mean that we use our fear to attack. And that is really what I'm seeing in terms of our behavior. If I may give you one example, is this: recently there was a case reported where a teenager went to a dance somewhere in Kingston, and she looked at somebody there, another woman, and it was a response that we looked on the clock, and that started an altercation which ended up in a fight in which she was rendered unconscious and spent some time in the hospital. That's a typical example of us being so aggressive that instead of simply moving on, it becomes a confrontation. And that is part and parcel of the issues that we need in the criminal justice sector to really focus on as to why we are doing these things. Why can't we, adjust our temper and act reasonably? And that's one of the reasons, the survival mechanism, unfortunately, but it can be fixed.
Please explain. The magnifying glass is on us when it comes to drug trafficking. As it relates to gun trafficking, the guns just keep coming and coming. Is it that it isn't? What's the story in the States? Because we're pressured for drugs. What about the guns? Is it
the gun?
Is it lawful?
No, the guns that are coming to Jamaica are purchased lawfully in the United States because that's a large weapons market for handguns as well as rifles and shotguns, and also the ammunition that is needed. In the United States, the Second Amendment to their Constitution is a sacred one. It allows for the populace to be armed. Jamaicans who are living in the United States, who are part of the governance of that country, are also entitled to do this provided they meet the criteria of not having been convicted of a crime or any other issue. And it is they we are now seeing for quite some time who are purchasing these weapons, packing them into barrels, and then shipping them to either Montego Bay or Kingston in large quantities. The few that are detected, unfortunately, many, many more have come through. This is why we see the ready capabilities of persons in our communities to be toting weapons and some of the latest models that are frightening. What we are doing. Sorry?
Has there been a connection between those who buy the gun in the States legally, and therefore there is some record trail with these people? Okay. And if the guns are discovered here, could you work backward to find out who is involved in this?
Certainly you can, but here is what the major issue is. Purchase of weapons in the United States by Jamaicans who qualify is quite legal, so there is no issue need investigation. What is of a bother to us is that they come to our shores and create havoc here. When they are purchased in the United States and shipped, even if they're found in barrels and other things, it's not breaking any U.S. laws, and therefore those shipments will continue. What has to be the remedy is for the Jamaican authorities, and especially through the police, if they need to get help from the United States, is just to be given a wink and a nod saying, yes, there's a shipment coming. And I think the last case, or the case before the second one, this was a case where I believe the authorities checking routinely, and they do random checking. They're not going to check everything because the number of items leaving the United States at ports run into the millions, and they don't have people to do that on behalf of Jamaica or any other country that's suffering from this kind of epidemic. But what happens is that if we can develop other ways of detecting, one of the key things is for us when it lands in our port. Yes, they're here, it's on a ship, it's going to come off. And we need to make sure that our customs, who are the defenders of our international border in those two locations, are much sharper in getting to X-raying, checking 100%. anything coming out of the United States arriving here. It's a hard task to do, but it's necessary if we need to detect more about and have an idea of the volume that's getting here. So these two instances recently, I believe one, I have no direct proof of this, but I believe one was a signal to the authorities here, and the other one, I have no idea. But more discoveries should be done by customs. They are the first line of defense on our borders, our port borders, and also airports. And that is where I think we need to really focus. So your program may want to speak to customs.
Yes.
On the,
certainly we'll follow up.
Yes.
But there must be some level of complicity with people in customs.
Well, it's mere speculation, but it's clearly, in my assessment, is first of all, they must tell us, are they doing 100% checks on all shipments that come in? And if you know the modus operandi, they're putting them in barrels, they're crating them, they're putting them in containers. Is there a facility for 100% X-rays of these items coming in, because then you can detect them? And because one can expect that individuals will change the way in which they ship things. If it was discovered one way, they will try and do other things. The customs authority has to be as vigilant and as inventive as those who wish to breach the tranquility of Jamaica by shipping these things and placing them in the hands of gunmen to go around and do what they are now doing.
Well, thank you very much, Carl, for really exposing us to some of the historical antecedents to this situation and the current methods that are being used to bypass customs to get them into the hands of criminals.
Yes.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Good. Thank you, sir. Good. Clearly, Stratton, what a former Army officer, Karl Marsh, just told us, it's quite revealing, eh?
Quite revealing.
And we have a serious crime fighter here, retired Senior Superintendent Cornwall Bigga Ford, right? He's a man who knows the streets. So where the gun trade and the gun crime, it's worth talking to him as well. Welcome, sir.
Blessed love, good evening.
How are you doing? How are you doing? Stratton just tell you fake news, I have become larger, but maybe because I saw a recent picture of him, he has lost weight.
Yes,
so
man.
After the show, he needs to tell me.
I hear him playing some good football too.
And he's playing some good.
Long time now.
Long time. What is happening, sir? You tell us. What is really going on with this gun crime, the gun trade? What is happening?
No, it's just the same old, it's just that we need to look at social program to get the young people in social program. The little youngster, them out street now have nothing for do, And gun come like cell phone on the road.
Yes.
So once gun come like cell phone, them are going to have access. And you have to give young people hope. So I does that. But
how it reach a stage that it come like cell phone on the road?
It reaches stage because look here, man. Access to the guns them are coming left, right, and center, and I wouldn't even say nobody now pay no attention. I think it look here, the man them where you tell the smuggling, the drugs, them are smuggle gun now because it's more lucrative. So the people them have to understand that too, you know. It's more lucrative because a man can sell your AK for $500,000. You can get a M16 for $300-400, and them money there. So a man be quicker smuggle gun than drugs.
But Bigga, if a man going to invest $500,000 for a machine, it's an investment. He must use it to get some return.
Yeah, man. Look here, big man, a big time investment. Man with them boat, man do all kind of thing. And look here now, you literally have army out there, you know.
What?
I don't want to alarm nobody, but literally you have the man them out there have them own army, man with rifle and all kind of thing. So I just that.
So you tell me say we have proud boys down here too?
In other words, it's very organized, right? It's not just some little man on the street with gun. It's a network now.
No, man, it's a network. Then if sometimes if you listen to the reports that come on the radio and the police report, sometimes you hear the report that 20 man strong step to our community and everybody have rifle and gun. So if 20 man a step and each man have 240 gun that. So I just saw the things still, but it can deal with still, you know. It's not hard, you know.
Who is involved?
And the police have the template for deal with it.
What's the template?
Okay.
What's the template? Because you know, we can hardly find a critical, a cohesive crime plan. So what's the template? What is it? What is it that they have that it's not being implemented properly?
No, you want me know. Any system you have, you know, you must can sell the program. Anything you have, you must can sell it so that the people then buy it. I think one of the problems why beat the organization is that them now get the people them for buying the thing. Because if I come and sell a program, you know, I have to convince you that the program can work and that everybody have an input. When you have a program where everybody don't feel that they are part of it, you know, you have a problem. So that's the problem. But it can't work because, let me tell you, the police have the know-how, the police have the resources, the police have the technical ability, and them have the people them with the experience.
But
as me say, you have to sell the program to the people them. You have to sell the program. You have to make the young people them buy it. All right, look here. I left the force 4 years ago now. And look here, when me I leave, me set to the then powers to be. Me and I meet with the big man them. And I said to them, look here, we have to change how we are doing the policing now, you know. We need somewhere like a call center where we have 200 young people who just left school who have the technical ability. And them just stay inside there and analyze the crime data and what is happening. So when one of them or them chief call me and say, Bigga Ford, come to my office, and I come and him outline everything to me and him give me a case file. The only thing I need to do is just go look on the place them want to raid and lock up the people there. It's simple like that because the information out there, and I like the information out there, But remember to, you know, crime a big box. So if you are going to compete, you have to spend money to, you know, you have to put money in the system so that the police them can go to buy the information and secure the information what they want. Because I just say it go.
Because the trust factor is low right now with community residents and police, don't it?
No, I don't think it low, you know, but here what happened now. When last year the police start out in a police youth club.
Bigger, listen to me. Every time I say it, people think it's something it's trivia. It's not trivia. You grew up in Hannahtown. I grew up in Jonestown. You remember when we were growing up how important the police youth club was? Because the police youth club protected the weak, you know. Remember, you know, who knew about the bad man brother and bad man father, uncle, and all of that.
Police.
Went straight to the police youth club, you know, because the police felt honored in protecting folks without any so-called criminal attachment.
Yeah, man, and the police youth club helped develop youngsters because police youth club those days were all about sport and developing young people. So when you could have play sports, the police them would have look out for you, find a school for you if you're not going to school and see that you stay in line, and then ultimately out of that come members who come join the police force and who make them own contribution. So we have to look at those things, you know.
And the police force is not, it doesn't have the weight, the social weight it once had. Neither social weight nor influence.
No, man, it have the social weight, it have the influence, but you have to think about who you get to lead it, you know. And as I said to you, you know, you have to have people who can sell the program. Or you go ask someone to go sell a program where you never be a part of.
Yes.
You can't sell a program where you don't be a part of, you don't know the benefit, you don't know what might come out of it. So
it's a fractured system.
Yes, simple. Yeah. It's simple.
Tell me though, we see where people believe it is the province or the poor people, them youth in the ghetto, etc. But there are big people involved in all of this.
Well, look here, as long as big money involved, big people are going involved. They see that manifest all over the place. So it did it. I don't know. The police, let me tell you, we did have a deputy commissioner named Marsh and ACP Green. The man them did set out them program, you know. Them have the program, them have everything. Look here, the man them they develop a system. So look here now. If me drive a Range Rover, me don't work.
Something wrong.
The system is there that the man them profile you. Know where you live. Say you left your yard 10 o'clock a morning time, and you go park on the corner, and you sit down on the corner all day, you have no source of income. We develop a case file, and we come deal with you. Because all of them things that there, you know, at there, boy, you have to sell the program. You have to make it work, make people say, watch ya, the program successful. A whole heap of tool the police have what can deal with it, you know. But as I say, you have to sell the program. And me hear people are balling and talk about the gunship them who are coming and the police them are run go get the gun them off of the wharf. Look here. I can remember a couple of years ago, me and the present assistant commissioner were in charge of crime now, Mr. Leng, Clinton Leng. We did a similar case where we recovered a lot of guns and we arrested people locally and we arrested people overseas and convict everybody. The template is there. It's not that the police don't know the police have the template, but you know probably. Let me tell you how policing go. Let me tell you how policing go and gun thing. You see when a man hear a gun around us, we just run go feet. Because everybody want them personal glory and fame and say, boy, we recover 30 gun for the year or 20 gun. You never get no promotion out of it. But it's a status thing. So if we move past the status thing and talk about investigation, we can be successful. We have ways and means. Look here, if we watch the new FBI, if we watch the FBI show them, if we watch the TV, we see the programs that them put in place to catch criminal and gun runner drug traffic and everybody, everything. All of what you see.
The various
on the
forensic
TV.
programs and all of that.
And look here, no make nobody tell you nothing. All of what you see is here in Jamaica. Every system, every forensic is here. But me say you have to have people are buying at the program. The man them can dust file, the man them can dust bullet, the man them can get fingerprint, the man them can get DNA, all kind of thing. Look here, the man them have the DNA legislation and all. Like when me did that and you want DNA off a suspect, you know, you have to go to the cell and wait, you know, or you have to talk to a policeman or somebody working at the cell and say, boy, when the man there brush him teeth and fling him teeth brush, you pick it up and bring, come give me. No, you can't go direct to the suspect now because the legislation is there. That's what we usually do in our days to get DNA. You have to watch and pee. And when a man discards something, you go pick it up and you try to get the DNA. That not dead anymore.
So it's the in a word, it's the buy-in from the public. It's the buy-in
from everybody, all around, all stakeholders.
And utilizing the template.
All stakeholders. And look here now too. I may tell you, it has to be the buy-in, you know. Some police do it. It must be mandatory in the organization. Look here. When we usually do big case, people call them big case or prominent case. The first 24 hours, you know, you keep a thing them called case management, you know, where you get all of the people them together. I'm want to dispel the notion now, so that the people them can't hear it. You hear them talk about one police at the 40 murder case, not Nagasa. A 40 police at the one murder case. Now make nobody tell you nothing and spread no myth. We have the resources. When we have the murder case, we have all 40, 80 man do the case. And so over time, as the case develop, the people them get lesser and lesser till it come down to the investigator and the technical people and the people them who are going to court. But when the murder investigation start or any investigation, we start out with about 30, 40 man. So we have the resources, we have people can deploy, we have everybody. We have investigator, we have intelligence people, we have senior crime people, we have technical people. So when you add up all of that, you end up 30, 40 man. And then you have support, you have the mobile reserve, you have the flying squad now, the sea talk.
So it's the buying to make this work.
Just to ask this one question. With all that you have said, why is it not being done? Who can we expect to move the thing to a place where we use it more efficiently to get the results that we want?
But, well, big boss, let me tell you, the whole of the man them there, you know, the whole of the man them there, that are trained, that was there, understudy, me don't know the problem. Me don't know the problem. Me can't tell you say it's A, B, or C. But the template there.
All right.
It there, and it's easy, and let me tell you, normally when we start out with major case, after you leave the scene of crime, you know, after you left the scene of crime, the first thing we do, you know, is call a case conference, you know, where we have a case conference room, you know, where everybody come and we look at the evidence and we start the investigation. And the next thing we do, which I think they might do it, but probably it want more buy into, you get in touch with the director of public prosecution office. And say, look here, I have this, I have all of this. And the director, the director, Mrs. Paula Lewin, as you call her, she has sent 2, 3 people come at your office and we sit down, we have the case conference, and we start get directions and directives. So you know, say something in a waste time and say if you do collect 40 statement, the director office say no, the 30. So at least from day one, from Jump Street, they're aware of the case.
All right.
Same template like what the US do, you know. So if you look at best practice all over the world, you know.
It's there. It's there.
Yeah, and we can pick from each jurisdiction we want to work with.
Ah, boy.
All right, Bigga Ford. This is eye-opening. This is eye-opening. And please, sir, we're going to come and check with you again. Because you have a lot, you have a lot to tell us. You have
and-
a lot to guide us with.
And another plug, one plug. Look here, the man them have to put some money, the man them have to open up the detective training school and train the people, them men. You have to train, you have to constantly train the people them and keep them updated. So that the man them can be a phase of the new trends, because every day new trends come on, you know.
Yes, that's true.
Every day new trends come on, and the man them have to invest. The man them have to invest some money in the organization, man, in the technology thing, man, especially cell phone. No crime no commit without a cell phone. Nothing no commit without a cell phone.
Thank you very
All
much.
right,
Thank
Bigga
you.
Ford. Thank you so much. Yeah?
Wow.
All right,
Good.
family. Bless.
Yeah,
Bless.
man.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Good.
Wow.
No,
What you leave here with, the template is there.
yes, it's there. It's there. And nothing more needs to be said. But we'll be back in a short while with another top crime fighter who is a key advocate of community policing. Back in a moment. All right. Stratty.
Aye.
Man who was retired, man who is now still active. Senior Superintendent Steve McGregor, who is a key advocate, as we said before, of community policing. Men who know the ground, men who know the streets, men who we need to keep talking to and talking with about crime fighting and this horrifying gun trade and gun crime. Steve, where we are going to do?
Well, it is bad, but it is manageable, you know. In our country, we take off over 600 guns every year off the street. But yet still, we are averaging over 1,000 murders a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the weapon of choice is, of course, the gun. Over 80% of those who are killed in our country, it is by the gun. But I'll tell you something that is encouraging, and I'm trying to impact our approach to managing crime and violence through this. When I was in West Kingston between the period of 2013 to 15, thereabouts, we brought down the level of murders from over 70 odd to 30 odd. But what was glaring to me is that the period of time that we brought it down to 30 odd, we only seized 5 guns. And during the period when it was up, we seized a lot more guns, 20 odd, 30 odd. So I found out, and due to my analysis, it tells me that if you go at the reason that these people want the gun for, you're more likely to get them not wanting to go for the gun. I want to say, wonder if you're following where I'm going.
Educate us further.
Yes, yes, yes. Say it again.
Because the guns are coming in, it is because there's a reason. There's a need for the guns, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes,
so
yes,
even
yes,
though we're
yes.
going at seizing the guns, we still at the same time have to go at what reason it is. As I've always told the story, why two youngsters will be quarreling about if Messi is better than Ronaldo, and one of them has to go for a gun.
Yes.
So if we go at the reason that drives that thought to go do the killing, and we settle that reason, it might just work, you know.
So the,
When I was in
the
West
follow-up
Kingston-
question to you is this. How do we address this reason, which I'm sure
All
you're
right.
pointing
Hear
to
the point.
mindset. Yes.
All right. Here another line that I'm getting to where the point is. When I took over command of the West Kingston Division, a lot of people were asking me what strategies I'm going to use to solve the problems of West Kingston. And I told them that I'm going to make a connect with the people. In my effort to make a connect with them, going to their places, keeping meetings with them, going to their dances and so on. You know what I found out? Murders and gun shooting was not their main problem. Their main problem at the time was having their dances. Having their dances. They had learned how to dance between the raindrops of the shooting and so on, because this is where they live. So they had to find a way to survive there. So they knew how to survive. So I said, okay, so if dances is your problem, I will coin my policing strategies around managing dances in the community. And they will tell you if you go out there and ask them. I let them know if there's no gunshot firing in your community, you will get your dance.
So they begin to self-manage.
So they have a, yes, they have a vested interest.
Is there something that
the police.
other officers do that is relevant and relative to the communities that they are policing? Or
Well,
is it just
therein
your
lies
initiative?
some of our issues. Because you have to believe in the people. You have to like the people. You have to make them think that you are with them. This is what we're trying to get our commanders to do, or what our CSS people to do, to build a relationship. Because it must be a people-centric approach that is going to solve the crimes, you know. The crimes are manifested in the community. It is committed by people in the communities, people in the community being killed. So they must be a part of whatever strategy.
This brings us to the point that of Bigga Ford. That this is what he kept stressing and emphasizing in our conversation with him earlier. The buy-in. Is there sufficient buy-in from the parties, the security parties, about engaging the people, dealing with the people, not making them feel that the police is just there to enforce the law, but more to engage them? What is the buy-in of the JCF where community policing is concerned?
Yeah, well, that is it. You see, it's a strategic plan. So it's not an overnight plan. And we kind of get drawn into this overnight thing to think that in a snap you can get it done. You have to, all right, look at something, what gets the buy-in. In the same dance management strategy that I told you, I told them if they can get me to come to their dance, the dance will go as long as I am there, because I am the boss. At 12 midnight, I will take the mic from the operator for 5 minutes, not a long time, you know. And then I would give them my charge, give them my mission, what I want. You will never get an audience like that at any structured meeting, you know. The kind of people who attend these dances. And then they will hear the voice of the commander. So and I've always said that a commander must have a face, a voice, and a name.
Yes.
That is what. So you become a household. So if you are the leader and you are carrying your team that way, it must work.
So you are now appealing to reason.
Exactly. And they see that you have their best interest at heart.
But as you indicated before, 200 guns being collected. But when you look at the movement of gun inwards, it's what, 200 a month or a week, Curtis?
200 a month.
A month. So when you collect your little bit over time, you're a quarter way there because it's 200 a month. So you must find some other way to prevent them from using what they are getting in abundance.
Yeah. And you must appreciate we have a very porous border. I mean, you know, it's an island. So when we see what we get coming through the official ports, you will have headache if you think about what might come through the unofficial and the unofficial ports. So that's why I'm saying, coupled with our efforts, which is going on to get these guns, we have to do other things from the psychological side because people are involved. So we need to go at the mind space of the people and that structured way. So if we take it from a two-fold approach, we're more likely to get better results. You know what I mean? But we're an increasingly violent society, our country. You know, we have to appreciate that. If you drive on the road and you bad drive a man, he might come out of his car with a cutlass to cut you up, or if he have a gun, just simply bad driving him. You know, so we are a society that is so tilted in that negative way. We have to work on them. Some of our social workers coming out of the university have to do some more work within the communities. It is not just a policing problem; it's a cultural problem, you know.
But that needs serious investment. That needs long-term investment, as you have inferred.
The solution is long-term, in truth. You know, it's not going to be done overnight, but it has to be consistent and genuine.
Does the police have the template to work through these situations? It is there,
well,
but
we
we're not
are
utilizing
trying.
them?
We are trying, but, you know, we depend on the powers that be to give the necessary financial support, other kind of support training. But we are doing our part. But, you know, we are tested short-term wise, you know. So the solution setting is more psychological, cultural, and so on. We are not tested by that, you know. When we do that, I mean, we are not judged by that. When we do that, it is like addition.
So one final question, Steve. Community policing has to be brought front and center.
Yes, and not in the way that people think community policing is, which is just hugging up and lifting up kids and buying books. It is more strategic. It's about involving the citizen in the strategies that you are using to police them. You must police with the consent of the citizen. They must be a part of whatever strategy you are doing. It can't just be doing some nice thing. That's not community policing, because that's not aimed at anything. It must have a aim.
Okay.
All right, Steve McGregor.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. And we will definitely be calling on you again.
All right, cool.
All
Good.
right, sir.
We have been talking to Army officer, police officers, right? Read the gun crime. You must speak to a social advocate, right? Of the ilk of a Horace Levy, right?
And long-standing experience.
Yes, because he's a man on the ground, right? He's one of the pillars of the Peace Management Initiative, good? And he understands the social melting pot. Thanks for coming on the program. Horace Levy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hope you are too.
Yes, yes.
Are you satisfied with the kind of funding that the PMI movement has gotten, that whole brouhaha about whether it is effective or not? What is the verdict? Had it been effective?
Of course it's been effective. And the study done by Herbert Gale, who is a well-known and highly respected researcher and criminologist and anthropologist, says that the work they're doing is excellent work. And he studied it both PMI East here in this part of the world, which covers Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, and to some extent in the West as well, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland. So his analysis is that they're doing excellent work, and he gives them a very high rating.
What were your challenges, main challenges? What was the undertaking of the PMI? What was that experience? Talk to me.
Yeah, the undertaking was to head off or curtail community violence. And that was the mission given to it in 2002, January 2002, when it was started by then Security Minister Peter Phillips. And that we discovered when we started, and let me interject that I'm no longer on the board. I resigned a year and a half ago from the board after 17 years on it. And I'm not, I resigned, I was at the time deputy chair, and I am not formally attached to it any longer. So though I'm in close contact with many of its people in various ways and supportive of it and working along with it wherever I can, but I'm not formally attached to it anymore. I just want to make that clear. But when we got this mission, which was brand new to us, we were 10 on the board, or 12 clergymen, academics, and Donna Parchment, now Parchment Brown, who is head of the mediation on Camp Road. We set off into the communities. We were completely ignorant of many of us of inner city life. A couple of us were, but the majority were not. And we were told to head off or stop community violence. And this was quite an undertaking to give to a civil society body. Obviously, we're going in without weapons. We're not the police dealing with violence. And so we had a completely free hand. And what we discovered was that the violence that we were looking at or considering was not the criminal violence of a shower posse or a dudus, but the violence of young men, mostly men, almost 95% men, 98% men, in communities, fighting each other because of political affiliation. That's what we discovered. And that was a completely different expectation than what we set out with.
There's no the matter of gun crimes, the amount of murders, etc. What has led
I
to
can
this?
barely hear you.
I said there is some concern about the gun crimes, the amount of guns in communities. What can be done about that now?
Well, the police are trying to do what they can, and that's a good forward step to identify the guns coming in and target the people sending them, because that's what very often they're not doing. The people who are sending them are overseas, and the only people who can reach them would be the police in conjunction with their overseas partners. Peace Management Initiative doesn't have the resources to track down those sources, but those sources are very, very important, because in many cases there are people who are formerly in the community, formerly at one time, and want to help out their buddies and their friends still in the community, and to exercise some control over them and control over what's happening in the inner city. So that's the first thing. They're stopping some of it coming in, but they're not targeting, I doubt it, the sources of these guns very often. Not even catching the people here who are receiving them, much less the sources. So that's number one. Number two, and more important than that, actually, is actually stopping the desire for them and the need for them. And the desire and the need, those are based in the urge to violence of those in the inner city and the rural poor communities too. That urge to violence against those who they see are hurting them, that has to be tackled in a way quite different from more cars, more planes, more ships, more police, more soldiers, more higher powered guns. In other words, you can't reach that violence inside of the hearts of young men in the communities by those methods. Mm-hmm. Those are fine for stopping a wave of murder, stopping such a wave at least temporarily, and we need it. We need those things to do so from time to time. But if you're going to try to reach to the violence inside of the young men, it's a different story, because that violence is being bred, being nourished on a daily basis, by the harassment, by the beatings, by the jailings, by the disrespect that's given to these youngsters, by the state, by the community, by their own families in terms of their mothers, especially, as Herbert Gale has pointed out, in the beatings, and it breeds violence. Dr. Walcott just the other day, earlier this week, mm-hmm. was saying the same thing. He was putting the blame on the police. The poor police can't tap into the psychosocial element, which is what he was talking about. But the state can, by not relying so much upon the police. Mm-hmm. Police can't do it. Police are not geared to deal with social problems as such. They're geared to try to police the community and to stop waves of violence.
What about social programs?
He's saying the same thing as what I'm saying. Yes, sorry.
What about social programs? Are we doing enough to reach?
No, of course we're not doing enough. I was just looking at the victimization survey 2019, and it has a section on social interventions towards the end of it, but the social interventions are only reaching 2 out of every 10 persons, about 20%. Those who it reaches are highly in favor of it. They are more than three quarters, 85, 87% of them are quite happy with it and want more of it. But that's what about the other 4/5 who are not getting any social intervention?
Let me ask you this.
One of the problems with the SOEs. They target a limited number of communities. They're not targeting across the board sufficiently. So the social intervention, there's just not enough. PMI has done very well in the communities, and PMI is the main social intervention under that heading of CSJP, Citizen Security and Justice Program. PMI is the main one there, but the PMI is not getting in. It works in limited communities in St. Andrew, Kingston, Clarendon, and St. Catherine.
The PMI, and this is the point I was about.
I beg your pardon?
The point of the PMI was I wanted to raise with you, as it related to that remark by the security minister that said that he doesn't think that the PMI is getting anywhere. Essentially, words to the effect. Is there a change now in outlook from the ministry? Is the PMI getting more support now?
Getting less.
Getting less.
Yes, he hasn't changed his outlook. He's completely convinced that the only way to deal with things is fix the police stations, get more ships, get better cars, put more police and soldiers on the ground, boots. That's his view. And I don't know if he's read Herbert Gale's study.
Yeah, because there are several studies out which speaks to it.
There are several. And the fact that PMI continues to continue some of its work on a limited scale because of funding from United Nations agencies and from international bodies like the British one and so on. It's only because of that they're able to continue in a very limited way. But they see the value of PMI. Mr. Chang, Dr. Chang, apparently is completely blind to it.
Wow.
He's biased in one area and can't see anything else.
Let's hope the scales will be moved.
And yet, you know, we need to wrap up here. But I can't see how he's not thinking now otherwise, especially from the last PAC meeting, where he admitted that succeeding administrations, right, have been complicit in the social development of communities. But that's a story we're going to get to in the next segment. Thanks, Horace, for talking with us.
Thank you, Curtis.
Right,
Thank you and your partner.
and we're certainly going to be reaching out to you again. Right?
Okay. Take
Good.
care.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good. Remember
Bye.
now, post your queries while watching. Text your concerns as well to 876, WhatsApp, 876-787-5873. Subscribe, share, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App Real Chat. Back in a moment. All right, we're going to continue the discussion of social intervention at a different platform and at another stage. The Public Affairs Committee, PAC, meeting last week in Parliament was and remains something to talk about. It was the sitting of the Joint Select Committee on Law Reform, Zones of Special Operations, Special Security, and the Community Development Measures Act 2017. Omar McFarlane Sweeney, Managing Director of the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JSIF, and his Social Development Manager, Mona Suho, made presentations to the committee. They were grilled, and the charges came left, right, and the center about measures not clearly defined. Those raising questions and eyebrows, however, were reportedly taken to school on the need for a long-term strategy, as there were no magic bullets, with the presenters highlighting the case of how projects were implemented in 12 communities at a time, as well as in 18 communities in 7 parishes simultaneously. Tongues are still wagging, as the chair of the committee, Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, agreed that the current and successive administrations have been complicit in keeping inner city residents in poverty, and admitted that the government had recognized that the social services side had not been functioning long before the zones of special operations were introduced in 2017. We have here the Managing Director of JSIF, Mr. Omar McFarlane Sweeney. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir.
You stressed very calmly, as is reported, how that there are no magic bullets and that there was the critical need for long-term, sustained investment for us to have the required development of these said communities. And you shared your model. Share your model with our audience, our listeners.
Well, wow, that's a big task. I don't know how much time you have.
No, it's all right. give it to us in a nutshell. Give it to us in a nutshell.
I'll do my best.
Yes.
What I'll tell you to begin with is that JCIF was formed 25 years ago.
Right.
As government intervention to target poverty alleviation.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the greatest things we know in terms of even the history of Jamaica is that rural to urban drift is one of the reasons that really led to what we know today as inner cities. You know, as persons left the rural areas where farming was the dominant livelihood to come into the urban areas to seek jobs and better opportunities, you know, you would have the development of informal communities and settlements. And so many of our inner city communities are not designed or built or have the capacity to really accommodate this sort of high density type of living. And then one of the results that come as because of this sort of high density is a lot of social ills, you know, when persons have to live so compactly.
Yes.
And so to combat that, you would want to have in an ideal situation a strong presence of the state or the government or services to deal with all the things that can come when the human beings live in close confines. You would need to ensure that persons have, of course, the proper housing, the proper utilities, the proper security, the proper lighting, the proper, you know, all of these things that are normally provided by the government. And so we have found, of course, that over the years, you know, we've just had years and decades of really this situation happening. And then, of course, today, we find many of these communities, the crime statistics, of course, are high, you know. And so we've been working since 2006 in trying to really tackle this problem from the point of view of bringing back state services into inner city communities.
And the more you can undertake simultaneously, the more you can do across all parishes in one sweep, it is the better. Clearly, we do better for it as a result.
Right. You have to tackle the problem not one at a time or if you want to say sequentially.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it concurrently.
Right.
Because I mentioned, for example, this sort of balloon effect where if you have a balloon and you press down on it here, the problem is going to bulge somewhere else.
Yes, right.
And so you sort of have to have strategically also a net that tries to compress the situation simultaneously. So from 2006 to 2013, we had done it in 12 communities. And then from 2014 till now, we've been working in 18 communities. And in fact, we've actually been working in all 30 because we never really left the first 12. Mm-hmm. Because after you've done your main interventions, you do need to have now that sort of presence. Mm-hmm. So we've retained our presence in the 12, while now we're taking on the 18. And as we move on from the 18, we will do that. And so the Planning Institute of Jamaica, so you understand, in 2012, shortly after the incursion in 2010, what was happening in 2012 is that a list of 100 volatile and vulnerable communities were established. And this was based on research and data and demographics. And so what we've been doing at JCIF is taking on this list of 100 communities and trying to see how we can now re-immerse and reinsert the state and state services into these communities.
Mr. Sweeney, how do you work with people in authority who don't take time to study and to study the study and to avail themselves of information, and then they have to counter what you are proposing. How do you work with this? Are you unevenly?
You're uncovered, I'm sure.
One of the things we have to do, while it is that we are an agency of government, we do also have to work in close partnership with many, a multiplicity of state services to deal with all the different things that we have to deal with. And like you say, where there may be situations of, and I'm being,
nice,
but where you have situations where we don't have the same understanding of the problem, what we try to do
clearly,
we try to increase everybody's knowledge and understanding and get on the same page.
Yeah, but as you mentioned earlier, the very basic courses that they do in planning suggest, and they run experiments with rats. If you put them too close together, they start to fight and bite up each other, right? And if you are compacting people, then the problem of the social ills will continue. We have not planned how we expand our communities. We are only making a larger ghetto.
Yes, we have to, there's that, but I like to look at some of these situations. I call them brownfield.
Yes.
Because in planning and in a sort of academic way, we can certainly come up with the perfect situation. The truth is that when I even speak about these 100 volatile and vulnerable communities,
yes,
you have to go in and deal with the persons where they are. You have to go in and deal with a culture of persons who have come, and this is multi-generational. This is not the first generation of people and you're saying to them, hey, let us try and get somewhere. This is persons who generation after generation have come, and this is what they understand their existence to be about.
But again, we return to the point both Shatton and myself have been making. The hurdles that are presented because we are only now admitting that we have been complicit in keeping the people in inner cities grilled, shackled to poverty. I mean, is everybody moving in concert?
I mean, gentlemen, I heard the minister, right? And I mean, I'm a public servant, and I heard the minister, but I would expand the argument a little bit further. I don't know if all Jamaicans share the same responsibility, and I want you to think deeply about that.
Yes.
All Jamaicans. I mean, we do it when we vote. We do it when we drive by people on the road. We do it in the decisions we take.
We're comfortable watching the television news about the horrors, but we keep our distance.
Right. So when he says we are complicit, I mean, all Jamaicans share that responsibility.
It's all of
you know
us.
what I mean? And in who we choose to help and who we don't help. And when I use an example for when we grill up our homes, right? What are we really doing? I mean, it is a false sense of security. But then you choose to grill up your home rather than deal with why it is that you think you need to grill it up.
Tell me something. And you might be saying to me, Curtis, here comes another loaded one. But I need to ask you, how does the JSIF, how does JSIF gets better? What do you need? What do you need to be more operating effectively in communities?
Well, we need to have more synergy with our partners. I think that's important. I also think that it's important that our partners are also adequately resourced, because that's one of the big constraining factors. Social services is such a wide dimension. I mean, JSIF in itself cannot carry out all social services. And so we do need to have a network of not only government, but NGOs, non-state actors that really do groundwork, church groups and civil society and persons really resourced and with a mission to really look at a new space where it's not we and them. You understand?
But
And
is there anybody who are looking at the needs basket and looking at where we can source the kind of funding that is necessary? What's the relationship between both?
well, the thing with funding, and that's a great point. The thing with funding is that funding for social investment is not the easiest to get because, I mean, economic investment, everybody understands the numbers. When you talk about social investment now, you're talking about the greater good. You're talking about spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make an educational institution what it needs to be so that for generations to come, you can have a good workforce, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, man.
You don't necessarily, you can't go to a bank and ask for that kind of money. You have to, the government would have to make a strategic decision or international funding grants and things like that. And so, I mean, one of the things we do at JSIP, I would say close to 40% of what we do is to go into international markets and try and attract that funding to Jamaica. And how we attract that funding is the success of our program. And that's another reason why the success and the visibility of our success is important because it attracts resources. And so that is something that we want to do and we continue to do in terms of expanding our ability to help persons.
Mr. Sweeney, it's a lot, yeah? But we don't have the time to discuss all. But you have a fair view and idea as to what confronts us. And we are coming to the conclusion that that is not being paralleled by the people who are in authority who should be encouraging this kind of program to benefit society.
We hope you do well and that you get the required support that is needed. Yeah?
All right, thank you for the opportunity, and I came today because I know the voices of you guys will reach even further.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Good. Back in a moment. We'll take a quick break. Chatty, real chat is supposed to be sports chat, any chat, chatty chat. Yeah. So this is now time. It's now time for our sports chat, right? The local table tennis saga may be aptly described as the tale of two associations, with developments clearly headed for court again. Yes. To decide legitimate structure as determined by the Constitution, given that efforts at mediation were unable to resolve what's contentious. The assigned mediator who resigned, exemplary sports administrator Anthony Davis, is here. Not to take tales out of school, but to provide guidance and direction, as is his consultancy to sports administrations on structure and operations. Mr. Davis.
Hello, Curtis.
How are you?
And I'm fine, thank you. And good evening, Stratham.
Yes,
and hello to your listeners.
How would you and how do we guide sporting administrations now on structure and accountable operations? How do we do this? You have the template. It's your consultancy. Please, sir, you have the class. Take it from here.
Well, if how I look at it, gentlemen, is that sports administration, sports management is an emerging discipline. It's getting significantly more sophisticated and is now accepted as a specialized discipline. You know, back in the days, what would happen is that volunteers of different disciplines, whether law, medical field, teachers, would get together and be the backbone of sporting organizations. That no longer exists. But the structure that was put in place back then that served us very well remains in some instances. Today, there has not been a consistent evolution and changing to be modern. Now, people who are trained in the sports management, sports administration discipline, in most schools that offer those courses, your first 2 years you will do with your business students. So the guy who is going to come out majoring in accounts and minoring in marketing or, you know, business administration, you sit in the same class. So why I mention that is that you need to have a business background. You need to have the same kind of background to effectively operate. It is in your senior years that you start to do sports marketing, sports econ, and so on. So what I want to put on the table is that you need to first look at how people get in office. The same principle that I just mentioned, that you have many different disciplines coming together and say, we want to run a sporting organization. We need to move away from that. The persons going for office need to articulate the vision for that sporting organization. And one or two, whatever number. And from there, you need to then get the skill sets to execute the vision that you have. Once you have identified the skill sets, then you can start getting those persons on board. What we do today is that we call Curtis and we call Stratton and we call Anthony and some other persons and say, come, let's put together an executive. When it is done like that, you can't cover the entire spectrum that you need to execute some basic management functions. What I've seen done in some sporting organizations is that the candidates for an election have to present a resume and testimonial to say what they have done. You circulate that to the membership a month or so before the election, that they can assess the people who they want to vote for. So when you revise how you select people, it is going to make a complete difference because you now have the skill sets to cover all the areas that you want. As it is now, some organizations end up with an abundance of skill in one area and not enough skill in another area, so they can't go forward. When it's time to put forward a committee, you can't put forward a proper committee.
Are you saying, Anthony, that we succeed in spite of ourselves, and with the demands of modern day sports, we need to change gear and begin to look at individuals who can fit certain slots which will more or less predict outcomes as to success?
Absolutely. And that brings me to the next point that I want to make, is that we have succeeded up to now, but we have to look at continually evaluating. Think in terms of any business organization. You have evaluation of your employees. If they are short in a particular area, they go headhunting to bring in persons. You have to be constantly looking at what is the emergent trend. Now, gentlemen, and I suspect some of your listeners may be within a certain age range. You remember Motorola? Mm-hmm. You remember Polaroid? Yes. Just to name two quickly. Mm-hmm. Why do I mention those companies? If you don't change, you get left behind. It is the organization that is able to reinvent itself that is going to survive. So you have to constantly renew your product. You have to constantly renew your management practice. Now, recently, we have a thing called COVID, which we never had before. Mm-hmm. Every organization in Jamaica, business or sports, their constitution did not allow for virtual anything. Mm-hmm. You are now forced to amend your constitution. Now, take a guess as to how many organizations are actually started to have that amendment to their constitution to facilitate next year we don't have this again if COVID or COVID-19 or COVID-25
Mr. Davis,
is with us.
Mr. Davis, let me hold my tongue and not answer that question.
No, but you see what I mean? No, some of these constitutions...
finish let me ask you before you can include it in the constitution. Are we
sure.
therefore looking for not only for the advance of the administrative side, but in terms of the athletes themselves, getting themselves up to par to be able to assess what is it they need in their administration?
You couldn't have said it better, you know. And we are looking at different levels. So the athletes themselves are evolving. And
but
you will
the
know
challenge to that, it's the right question and the right point Stratton is making. But you know the challenge to that? We are more political pools and parties as members of associations, right? And those of us who should be monitoring and are monitoring the developments of the associations step by step are called the troublemakers.
Well, yes, that happens.
Can I give an example?
Please.
Sure.
When we started the program, just before the elections of the J3s, and we're not troubling anybody here, we called a couple athletes and asked them to indicate what is it that they would like the administration to do for them.
Thank you, sir.
And they agreed and then declined at the last minute, feeling that they are threatened. How can we operate in that sort of environment?
Or as some told us, their managers told them, it wouldn't be prudent at that time to be saying anything.
To say what we need.
And we're not just talking about, and we're not just talking about current athletes, you know. We're talking about senior athletes as well.
Okay, the solution to that is if the organization was evolving, they would have gotten to a stage where the athletes would feel secure to speak. All your stakeholders would feel secure to speak. But because in business, cartels are illegal. But in sports, you have cartels, one way or the other. Right? In business,
and some of those cartels are without vibes.
Precisely. In business, you can't do price fixing, but it happens in sports. Now, why am I saying all of this? If you introduce systems in place, then the athletes will feel that there's a fair system and there is a just system. So if something happens, they have their day at the table to defend themselves. As it is now, they feel that no such system is in place. Now, how do you protect the organization? Because you have, the image is everything. And there are some persons who will shy away from the media when it suits them, and they won't come. But the message that you want to get out cannot be only to your stakeholders who can vote into office, but also to corporate Jamaica and the man in the street to tell them what your programs will be to develop the sport. If you have that kind of openness and transparency, your athletes, your coaches, your agents will feel more open to discussions. Organization of culture, and part of the culture has to do with the era in which you were trained, the era in which you grew up. We are coming from an era where when you get into office, it is not about serving the sport, but about entrenching your position that you are there for life.
That is what it is.
Good.
We have seen it in football. There's a recent thing with cricket where the general people around the sport figure that it is going nowhere, but there's nobody who is able to challenge successfully. How can we continue with situations like that?
Precisely. Now, if you are in office and what you do is you amend your constitution to become up to date, so term limit is now something that more people is looking to, because you have youngsters coming in who have a different skill set. They relate to their stakeholders differently from somebody who was trained in the 60s and the 70s. So by term limit, you're automatically renewing yourself. There are some key positions that should not be there for 30, 40 years. For example, your president, your treasurer, you need to have them rotated. A growing trend among sporting organizations is that your general secretary or your CEO is not an elected position. And one of the reasons why people drift towards that, you can get a far more competent person because you employ who you want based on their resume and their track record. If you continue electing your president, your secretary, your general secretary as a elected positions, you won't necessarily get the best person to run the organization because it's a business. We are talking about how can we avoid some issues. There must be performance evaluations of the persons within the organization, right? You must have job descriptions. You must have policy and procedure manual. You have persons going away as manager, and I'm not speaking about any special sport. Do we know if the reporting procedures are standard? So somebody go to game A or activity B and write a different kind of report from someone else. So what you need is a template to say, for every event that you participate in, this is the kind of report. Here are the areas that you must cover. It is like you're evaluating let us say, a drama. There are some criteria which the judges have to score out of 10, and at the end of the day, it is a top score that is the winner. We need to have that kind of situation for managers and your support staff.
We're running out of time, T, but what you have said so far will clearly influence people to the need that we need to look at how we manage sports in the future. I chuckled while you're presenting because, as you mentioned a point, with the West Indies cricket situation, some people are arguing about the players now getting tired of the bubble and not making certain trips. And the question was asked, has any manager gotten tired of the bubble? The manager goes everywhere.
Yeah. But you know, it is something that we really need to have dialogue on, because income generation, in sponsorship, do you just put the money in the bank, or you have financial advisors who say, no, you can invest X amount of money here, you can do that there. This is the direction that we are going now. I mean, Stratton, I know you're running out of...
We do have ready sponsors, so you need to earn for
Precisely. We're running out of time, but let me just quickly say this. Brand Jamaica, every day I hear how big it is. Why is it that more sporting organizations are not into merchandising? And don't tell me that the Jamaican market is small, because we have a couple million Jamaicans overseas. So if you're thinking that you're catering only to the local market, you're wrong. I see people in Jamaica wearing Manchester United things and Barcelona shirts, right? You're good. Now, when you travel overseas, it doesn't matter what you have. As long as you have the Jamaican colors, people want it. People are producing products in various corners of the world and attach a Jamaican flag to it.
All right, thanks.
The moral of that story is that our brand means something.
All right, thank you ever so much, Anthony. Thank you.
Sure.
Good.
All right,
Good.
take care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
And remember, yes. I see the producer waving at me here. Post your queries while watching. Text your concerns as well to 876-787-5873. That's through WhatsApp. Subscribe, share, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App Real Chat. Shati?
Yes.
You have the last word.
I think useful program, heavy because it had to deal with the international situation with the diaspora, where we're looking at several angles in terms of the evangelical and the religious system in the States, how that will be impacted. You're also looking at immigration, and also as it relates to businesses and public situations governing how.
The issue of the gun crime
was also there.
Yes, and a takeaway is not only what is to be provided as surveillance tools, but clearly also what we have to continue to do in communities. The buy-in, as retired Superintendent Bigga Ford kept emphasizing and stressing, and the buy-in, as Senior Superintendent Steve McGregor spoke about in terms of the engagement of the community members.
It must be noted that Bigga Ford just speaking about that the resources are there, the technology is there, so something is amiss, something is not happening. Suggestion was made that perhaps the people who are leading are not people who have come through the ranks of the police often enough, and therefore the approach is different. And they really don't.
You see, it comes to through my own lens as this whole question of order and who is in charge. This in charge persona sometimes creates more problems, right, than provide solutions, right? Because me in charge ought not to mean that you are the subordinate.
It has to be that there are people in authority who wants to be in charge of the person who is
in charge. Right. So clearly, you know, one's engagement in terms of crime, we're all in charge, and we all need to be engaged, or else we are going to continue to have these horrifying statistics.
And when you look at the gun situation, one becomes readily worried, you know, with the amount of guns that is in the hands of people who are not.
It is frightening. It is frightening because this one have a gun, the song they say, and that one have a gun, right?
Just kill each other.
Oh, we pray for change, right?
Right.
And in the words of Amanda, who started the program, that stirring poet laureate, right? We hope we're not broken, but just unfinished.
And we are in an uncivil war amongst ourselves.
And that the uncivil war will end. Join us next week, Thursday, 3 to 6. More chat, real chat.
But also remember, post your queries while watching text your concern as well to 876-787-5873. Subscribe and share and support the program by contributing to the Cash App $@RealChat.
Right. Next week.